April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and I have always been asked, what is it like to share your story? What is it like to be in a support group? What is it like to get therapy? I'm asked questions all the time. So not just April, Sexual Assault Awareness Month, but even more so now because people are calling and asking for interviews. I did one today for a radio show, and they always want to know, if somebody's scared, what's the first thing they should do? And I said, this is a great opportunity at any time, but now also because we're doing everything online and because it's April, Sexual Assault Awareness Month, what an awesome opportunity to take people who are survivors, who know this process and are willing to put their face and their name out there to get online and talk a little bit about what this process is like or what it has been for them. Anyways, it's individual. Everybody is different. For some people, it is like diving into the deep end of a pool, and it is a long journey to the surface. And for some people, it's like jumping in the pool and they're splashing around and having a good old time, and they, got their chips and dips in their unicorn-shaped, inner tube and. Right. So for everybody, it's different. But that's why I wanted to do this. I just, wanted to talk about the process. And I also, I always tell people one of the really, really horrible things I think about sexual trauma is that not only do we experience the actual trauma, but then there's this belief that we have to not talk about it, that we have to hide our faces, that we have to hide our story, which then feeds into that belief that there's something wrong with us, there's something dirty about what happened to us, there's something shameful that we did. And in reality, none of it is our fault, and none of it is our doing, and none of it is our shame. So we should be the most vocal and out there in the public and show our faces and show our voices. All that being said, I know that it can be easy for me sometimes, and it can be very, very intimidating for others. But I think if somebody is willing, as hard as it is, it's good to show your face. So all of those reasons are the reasons I wanted to do this today. So for those who don't know you, Rebecca has been somebody that I've known for quite a while, but kind of in and out of each other's lives. And then just all of a sudden you came in like gangbusters. I guess like a year ago now?
I think so. Yeah. I'm not 100% sure, but somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah, maybe a year. Yeah, I think it's probably been about a year.
Yeah,
about I've been, more actively involved.
Yeah, about a year. And, I will let you share about yourself. But one of the things that just amazed me from the beginning about you is that, there was a couple of things. One, you have a story that's very different than a lot of people because, most of us have perpetrators that we know, and you did not know your perpetrator.
Did not.
One of the things that people always feel a little weird about coming to a support group is they think, well, my story is different, I'm not going to fit in. And I try to explain to people, all the details might be different. The color of our skin might be different. Our religion might be different. You may have had a one-time incident. I may have had a lifetime of abuse. But it's really how we look at our body and our relationships and sex and trust and guilt and shame. Those things are the same.
Absolutely.
So I know you and I had that conversation. And again, your story is not a story that we do hear a lot because, again, most people statistically know their perpetrator.
Right.
So I do want to talk a little bit about that. And I also just want to say, but once you were ready, you jumped right into that pool and you were ready to speak. And then you started volunteering to run the group up in Vero. And it's just been amazing. So before I let you take over, I also just want to say, we're putting together these little goodie bags for our participants in our support groups so that we can, go around and drop stuff off at everybody's house just to cheer
That's so
them
sweet
up.
of you.
And well, you donated all of this jewelry that you make, which I didn't even know you had like the secret little talent. So I went and picked this stuff up at your house, and if I were a selfish little bitch, I would keep all this stuff for myself because I've been loving everything in this bag.
I'm so glad, yay.
But I want to give everybody kind of like a sneak peek because this is the cool, I had no idea. This is the, look, first of all, this bag, everybody can see, like, is filled with stuff. So you better be nice to me so you can get this. But like these earrings, like these cute little earrings, I can't believe you made those with the little
sparklies.
I
love them. They're dreamy. They're just little cabochons. They're kind of like what I've got gold ones on today. They're just so easy.
And these, they look like mermaid.
Yes, those are when I do those at the fairs, I have a little sign that says always be a dragon and always be a mermaid, depending on the color of the scales. They're either my dragon scales or my mermaid scales.
Is this part of like a therapeutic process for you to do kind of crafts and art?
Yeah, I think so. My mom and my aunt were always like super crafty, and I kind of dabbled. I like dibbled. Even though the word's dabbled, I'm going with dibbled.
I like that. I like that.
And I just never really found anything that I was good at, and then when I got laid off back when the building boom busted, I started playing around with some jewelry things, and this stuff just kind of is what I call like my funsy line. But my main thing I do is I take old book pages and I feature like the words or a character or something and set them in like a vintage looking kind of setting. So it's like what I've done. That's my passion of it. But yeah, I just love it. And it's fun. I love making them. I love going to the craft shows and meeting people, and yeah, it's good.
So
it's definitely
cool.
Therapeutic for me.
Well, thank you for sharing that so that we can give it to all of our ladies because
my pleasure.
Everybody needs to pick me up, and that's one of the things I just love is that we are so supportive of each other and everyone shares with each other. So
you put that stuff together, and that's
real quick. I forgot to ask you when we started, how old are you?
I am 48. We'll be on next Saturday.
Okay, did you purposely just make your computer go out when you said your age?
I didn't. That's funny. Can you hear
me? I didn't hear what you said, but it went blah, 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 blah.
I'm 48. I'll be 49 next week.
Next week is your birthday.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Happy early birthday.
Thank you.
So you're 48, and when did you start your healing journey?
I was raped when I was 20. And it was kind of right after, sort of. I mean, I just kind of started putting one step in front of the other. I never really gave it much thought. I just sort of tried to keep on keeping on. Yes, you can come. My husband just came in the room. And so I just sort of kind of started going, but it was probably about 3 years after my attack that I really sought out help and therapy and others.
You were pretty young.
I was, yeah. I was 20. I turned 21 like 6 months afterwards.
Wow.
So yeah, it was tough. I had kind of lived in this happy little bubble before. These things didn't happen. These were things you saw on TV. Especially the way it happened for me. I was, as it turned out, I found out many years later, but I was followed from a store, and then that person broke into my home and proceeded to attack me and then disappear. And it took 10 years to find them. He was found through DNA, and as it turns out, he's a serial rapist. So
Wow. So like literally straight from the headline, like a movie.
exactly, and that's what it's like. My story is definitely, one of the more rare ones, but it's the ones that people are more intrigued to talk about. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but the boogeyman, it's the ones that they make the Lifetime movies and the
Right.
after school specials, because you're supposed to always be looking out for the scary guy. But sadly, for most of survivors, it's in your own home, or someone or so the stories are all different, but the healing process, like you said, I think is very similar. But I definitely struggled with that.
Was this somebody
um
that you worked with?
no,
You
no,
didn't know, you didn't know
I
him at
had
all.
never. No, this was 100% completely random, completely. After they caught him, he allocated to how he found me. And I had gone, it was Christmas night, and my parents had given my roommates and I a washer and dryer for Christmas. It was like a used thing, so we could stop going to the laundromat. So I had gone Christmas night to Walgreens, which I don't know if it still is now, but was always open like on holidays and 24 hours a day. And he saw me at Walgreens on Christmas night and just followed me home and stalked outside my home for a few hours until I went to sleep, and then broke in.
So how, gosh, how did you decide to go from being so young and having like this idyllic upbringing and this like happy life? Obviously you had this nice family who brought you gifts, washers and dryers, and you know nice life,
Yes.
and everything that about safety and trust, everything is broken. What was the change like for you?
Uh, it's hard to say. I mean, it was blinding for sure. I don't know how much I don't know how much I registered the change. It just sort of became every day, but it changed everything. It changed my comfort level in myself. It changed going to the store. It especially because for me, for the first 10 years, I didn't know who had raped me. I didn't know the circumstances. I didn't know if it was someone who knew me or if it was someone who was stalking me. I didn't know if they were going to come back.
It must have
I
been the worst part, just thinking
it,
he
it
was with you around all the time.
absolutely, no matter where I went. I'm a 20-year-old young woman trying to live my life. I'm turning 21 a few months later, and
Oh.
you want to go out with your friends, you want to go to clubs, you want to meet people, you want to, and all of that was very, very difficult because I didn't know if the guy talking to me at the bar was the guy who had broken into my home, and I just didn't know. So that was really tough. So to be perfectly honest, a lot of alcohol. To go out with my friends, to put on the show of normalcy for the people around me because they didn't want to hear about it anymore. They didn't want to, you know, think about it. They didn't, it was done for them, after they, patted me on the shoulder and hugged me or whatever, which no fault to anybody's, but you know how it is that people don't know how to react to something when this really happens.
Yeah.
People can mourn and give you, support if you have a family member that dies, or, when it comes to something like that, it's really hard. So, that's where a place like Inner Truth is so incredible. There wasn't a place like that when I was first raped. There was really, my resources were very, very limited.
And this was here,
Um,
right? This was in St. Lucie
yes,
County?
yep, Port
Yeah.
St. Lucie. Yep. So I actually, the victim services through the state's attorney's office, the sexual assault victims advocates there. It was literally very, very beginning. Harriet she came to the hospital because I called 911 after the attack, and the police came and the ambulance came and the whole thing. And I was taken to the hospital, and the rape kit was done, and all of that, the interviews and stuff were all done there. And Harriet, she came for me in the middle of the night, and she just was there, and I didn't know how much she was giving me. She held my hand, and she just was there, and she was amazing. And she came with me to my depositions. She came with me, she called and checked on me. She got me therapists' names. That resource was something at the time, and it was just Harriet. I'm not sure who else she had in her department, but there was no there was no inner truth for weekly meetings and that sort of thing. So it's a blessing, I know for others to have a place like what you have created. It's incredible, seriously.
I remember when I first came to this area, I did a walk. There's an organization called Lauren's Kids.
Yes.
And she does a walk from Key West to Tallahassee. So I walked with her from Martin to Vero.
Wow.
And what the fuck was I thinking?
It's a long walk.
It's a long walk. And I mean, and the whole time I'm thinking I'm gonna die, but she walks from Key West to
right.
Tallahassee. It's not like you can complain, right?
Right,
and on one of the stops, there was like a water break or whatever, and Harriet was there. And I knew who she was, but I'd never talked to her.
Gotcha.
And we had to get in cars. There was like what do you call that? Like
a break, like a stretch where you had to.
Yeah.
Oh.
But a bunch of cars following each other. A caravan.
Oh, caravan, yes.
And so she said, "Come in my car." So I'm driving in Harriet's car. I couldn't believe it. And I mean, I like idolized her, and I was like,
oh yeah,
oh my God. Like I had all these like images, like one day I would like be able to help people. And here's this woman, like I'd heard all of these amazing stories like you just shared. And I just, so, she was really a pioneer in this area. So she's quite special. I was really, I'll never forget that day that I drove in her car,
That's so cool.
My memory is a little bit happier than your memory, but.
That's okay. That's okay. It was funny actually, because many years later, I got involved with them before I don't know if I knew about your organization at the time, but they have volunteers who help out with the victims advocacy side of it. Right. So I had gotten in touch with them and had gone through the training to the victims advocate volunteer side, and I met Harriet again, and that was special. It was really emotional, to speak to her again and to see her, So, but that's just it. It's especially in the early stages when you first start talking about it and trying to take your healing steps from it. It's so important to have a Harriet or a Mindy. Those things are very special. They're very important.
So let me ask you, how did you go from being in the hospital, you're all these years, this young person, you don't know who this person was that raped you, this stranger, to, okay, I'm gonna seek help. I'm gonna talk about this publicly. I'm going to seek out people to have relationships with.
I don't know. That's one of those strange questions, because I just sort of did it. I was very lucky. I had support from my family. I had good friends, and I just sort of moved. I just sort of kept putting one foot in front of the other. There were definitely very low days or horrible days. There were thoughts of just giving it all up and ending it all. There were days of fetal positions and not able to get out of it. But it was just sort of a, I think it was sort of a like, this fucker's not going to keep me, down every day, you know. Not anything that I necessarily say I did consciously. But I think once I got going with it, I was just like, okay, I just gotta keep moving, you know. So I sort of did. And then I actually, I was dating a guy when I was raped. We had known each other for maybe a month or so. And then we didn't see each other again for about a year or so. We had mutual friends, that kind of thing. About a year after my attack, we saw each other again at a friend's housewarming party or something. And we've been together ever since. So having my husband know what I went you and having, kind of been there in the first early days, that definitely helps because he was an amazing support. So just kind of, I think when it was about 3 years after my attack that I was living in New Jersey at the time, and I heard this ad on the radio for a nonprofit group called WAR. It was called Women Against Rape, and they did a, a lot, pretty much like what you do. It was a group of, and it had volunteer counselors and therapists and different groups. And I just, without really giving it more thought than I just picked up the phone and I just called and I told the person on the phone, briefly what had happened and what I was looking for, and they just jumped in, immediately. They set me up with an appointment to meet with a counselor probably within a few days. It was kind of like I didn't have the chance to change my mind,
Right.
which was good,
Right.
because in the years before that, Harriet had, hooked me up with some different therapies and some different groups and stuff, and I just I just don't know that I was ready, you kind of have to be ready to
Oh
really
yeah.
face it,
Yeah.
and some of those places and those groups were great, but I just wasn't ready in my own to really dig in,
Yeah.
but I was, and with this group I did, and they had this really intense uh, group. There was only, I think, 6 or 7 of us in the group, and we met like every Monday night for, I want to say, several months. And each week we tackled like anger, denial, whatever. And it was like worksheets, and it was like a school. It was really intense, and that was amazing, and that did a lot to get me, where I needed to be. I came out of that much stronger and much more like I felt like a survivor.
Yeah.
For the first time, I really was like, okay, I'm not a victim of rape. I'm a survivor of rape. And from there, it was just sort of keeping on. And
Yeah.
I think for me, and I always feel weird when I say this because I don't know how to word it, but for me, in a way, I'm one of the lucky ones because I was literally in my bed asleep in my own home, and this person came in my house and raped me. So as much as I still to this day have, why the fuck did I leave and go to the store? If I hadn't done that, he wouldn't have followed me. He wouldn't have, I still have those days, 20, almost 29 years later, I still have those moments, but I can stop myself and say, no, there's only one person at fault for what happened to me. But so I've always been very vocal about talking about it, because if you don't, then that shame of others, that shame that we all have of what did I do wrong? How did I put myself in this position? What was I wearing? What did I do that somehow enticed this guy to follow me home?
Right.
So in talking about it, I've always felt like screw that, you know. And every time I've talked about it to anyone, I've never known anyone to not have a story, not whether it's their own or their sister, their cousin, their brother, their friend. you know, whatever. It touches so many people, and yet it's so taboo to talk about it on
It's
so
my
many levels.
experience too. And, you know, there's so many people who say to me, or they imply that this can't possibly be such a big issue. And I'm like, I don't ever talk to somebody who doesn't
Right,
say to me that they don't know somebody, or they themselves haven't
right,
experienced this. I mean, I hate to make light of the word, but I truly think it fits the description of a pandemic, because it is
oh yeah,
global and the numbers are uh, so unsurmountable. I mean,
mhm,
there's no way to even actually capture it.
right, because so many people, so many men, women, children don't come forward because of the shame and the stigma, and you know, the perpetrators who lay that shame and that stigma on their victims,
Right.
you know. It's, you know, and that's where I'm kind of a pain in the ass about it, but I put it out there. I just, you know, I'm not quiet about what happened to me, because what happened to me is a small piece of what happens to so many people every day. So, you know, everybody can go to the ID channel and you watch all those murder shows. I'm obsessed with true crime, you know. I watch them all the time. But even when the person was, you know, raped and murdered, the and of course murder is worse. Please, I'm not saying it's not. I'm so thankful not to have been one of those statistics. But it's like that's where you know, people are comfortable. They can talk about murder. They can talk about, you know, that side of true crime. But talking about, you know, the sexual assault side of it is so different. You know, it's always, well, that couldn't happen to me, or what was that person doing, you know, to cause this to happen, you know. So it's going to be a forever challenge to get rid of that shame, because until that's gone, I don't think we can see the improvements we need to see. Now, thank God, the Harvey Weinsteins and those people are starting to come to light. Maybe that'll help a little. Who knows?
I think they're short-term stories, unfortunately.
Yes.
And you know what? I don't think you're a pain in the ass. I think, you know, if somebody has a heart transplant, they talk about it for the rest of their lives. They want everyone to know, and everyone listens because they're, you know, living proof, so to speak. And so why shouldn't we be the same way? You know, you know, we're valid, we're worthy, and we have something that's pressing and important
Mhm.
to say.
Absolutely.
And so it's not that you're a pain in the ass, it's that you're valid and you should be heard. And I actually disagree about the whole murder thing. I mean, I'm glad that you're here, I'm glad you weren't murdered, but
I
I
was gonna
think,
say thanks, girl.
but but hear me out. I mean, I don't wish anybody that I know to not be alive. Okay, so
Of
this is
course.
a weird thing to say, but once you're gone, I mean, we're all going to leave this earth eventually, and once you're gone, I don't know what happened. You know, I mean, I'm Jewish. I don't necessarily believe in heaven and hell and all that. Everybody has their different beliefs, but
Right.
there's pain for the people that are here,
Hmm.
that mourn the loss, but I don't know that we have pain. But as survivors of rape, we live with pain. You know,
Yep.
we live every day with the new knowledge of how our life has changed. I'm not saying that every day is painful, because we've learned our new normal, but the
Hmm.
memories don't ever go away.
Right.
The way we view people, the way we view the world, everything's different. You know,
Hmm. Yes.
when you're murdered, you're gone. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Absolutely.
it's hard.
Well, like,
Eh,
yeah, for me, I always say there's like there's the people who live in, I live in a different world. You live in a different world. Everybody who, you know, has been through anything like what we've been through lives in a different world than Sally down the street, who has never experienced anything like this, because it's something that doesn't happen, you know, it's something that doesn't really happen. And even, like my daughter, she's 23 now, but she, because of what happened to me, lives in a little bit darker world, because she knows what can really happen, and she struggles with it a little bit sometimes when she, has friends or whatever who might be making light of rape, because whether it's a TV show or a song or something, it tends to be a punchline a lot of times, and that sucks, and that's really unpleasant, so she's a little warrior too sometimes, in that regard. She'll be like, oh, that's not a joke, that's not funny, and that's amazing. But like, she's got friends who don't see that, and so she struggles with them a little bit, like, make sure you have your pepper spray with you, make sure you set your alarms, make sure you call me when you get home, and they're like, whatever, whatever. So it's just, it puts you into a different reality.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's unfortunate, but it's also sometimes it's, the thing that keeps us also more aware and more alert, and
Definitely.
you know
And it it allows us to be, I don't know what the right word is, but guardians for, or guidance, for people who need to find a place like the inner truth, and
right.
talk to other people who, especially people who've dealt with a lifetime of, abuse,
Right.
childhood abuse and spousal abuse and stuff. There's so many people who have never been able to talk to anyone
Oh,
about it.
I don't know anybody like that.
You can't imagine such a thing. That's not real. You don't know.
You know what I was just thinking though, your daughter will maybe one day meet somebody like that, and she will be the perfect friend, so in a way it'll
Mm-hmm.
be a gift when it's time, so that'll be the silver lining.
Yeah,
uh, so you move 10 years forward, they
Mhm.
finally are able to find this scumbag, and you have done a lot of healing. What then brought you to a place of you wanted to come to a support group?
Um, I think just because the healing never ends. For one, you're forever just, and I got, like, when that when he was found, I went through that. That was kind of like a ripping the band-aid off, and there was the scab again, so I had to kind of deal with it in a new way. So it was re-traumatizing,
Yeah.
for different reasons. So to deal with all of that, so that was again, a new process in the healing process to get through that. And then life just sort of, goes. I was lucky at the time. He was sentenced to 25 years. Unfortunately, he only served 10 of those. So I had kind of 10 years of what felt like peaceful sleep and freedom a little bit. I didn't have the same, it definitely was different in those 10 years when I knew that he was in prison. When he was released early, that was another re-traumatization. Now I
Yeah.
was dealing with a new aspect of it. Now, not only, am I dealing with, but now I know that this person, where he is, who he is, that he exists. Thank
So now
goodness
you're
for,
watching all the time. Now you're on, like,
right.
obsessing about it.
Exactly. And now at this point, my daughter's older, so now I'm more concerned for her safety, which, it's hard, to have a kid and everything anyway, but, to have a daughter who now I'm terrified of, her having, go through anything. So, it was, now that's another level of what I have to deal with, because thankfully he has a lifetime probation, so he has an anklet bracelet he has to wear, but over the years, because, and thankfully for it, the VINE system, which is the Victims
Mm-hmm.
Information National something, they let me know what his movements are. You sign up for it, and so basically, anytime his battery went out in his bracelet, or he had a court date for something else, or
They
he missed
notify
his
you.
appointment with his PO, I get those phone calls. So there it is again. You know, I'm going about my business on a Tuesday, and now I get this call. So it was that sort of thing. And then, honestly, when the Me Too movement really hit, and for me, even bigger than that, I think, was when the Golden State Killer, the East Area Rapist, was found through DNA.
And that was about a
maybe
year
a year
ago.
and a half ago or so?
Mhm.
Yeah, that hit me hard because his MO was very similar to my rapist's MO. Um, I could feel deeply what those families and women were going through after. I mean, for them, it had been decades. It had only been 1 decade for me, not knowing. And seeing his face flashed, you know, on every newscast, right? And, you know, just thinking about the fact that his victims and his families, victims' families, are having to look at his face over and over and hear his name and hear the stories again. That really brought it up for me, and I thought, you know, I'm never going to be done with this. And that was when I kind of reached out again and started coming to the group, you know, a little bit more, and, you know, getting involved in some of your events. And then you put out a call for needing someone to help in Vero, and I had just kind of been talking with someone, Tracy from the state's attorney's office, and saying to her that I wanted to get more involved. I wanted to, you know, kind of step in as a survivor, advocate, to kind of be able to help people more, because I felt, especially with the Golden State Killer thing, I really wanted to, like, I was like so and I wanted to reach out to those people. I wanted to reach out to everyone and say, I it's okay. You know, I know this is horrible and you're going through this again, but you're going to survive it again. And, you know, and celebrate with them at the same time, because it was such a huge thing for him to have
Right.
been found. And then all the cases after that started, you know, all the cold cases that started being found through DNA, that
Right.
got me, you know, more pushing and more talking openly about the rape kits and the backlogs.
Right.
So that was when I kind of came to you and was like, I want to do something more. You know, I just want to be involved more. I want to run my mouth about it a little bit more. And then I think, I don't know if it was around this, well, it was, I guess, a couple years ago, in the midst of all of that, my rapist got caught in a sting where he was living, where he was working as an unlicensed contractor. And because of his background, the sheriff where he was over in Pasco County chose to make an example of this piece of shit and basically be like, this is why we care if you pay your $40 and get your contractor's license and have your background check done, because these are the people that could be in your house. So that was, there he is again. You know, here he is in my face again, in the news. And, you know, people were, you know, the Vine thing was ringing like every 5 minutes to tell me where he was now.
Right.
And that was in September of 2018. And right now, he's sitting in the St. Lucie County Jail, waiting to go before the judge, to be re-evaluated for his breaking probation in my rape case. He, a few months ago, went before the judge in Seminole County for breaking that probation, because it was actually the case in Seminole County in 1995 that led to them matching his DNA to my case, which had happened in 1991.
He's been in the county jail for over a year.
He was in Pasco County initially, because he got sentenced to a year for the fraud. And then because of what he did, that breaks his probation. So he was then moved to Seminole County, where he was for several months. And then he had to go before their judge. And when he did, they sentenced him to an additional, I think it was 20 years. And because of the state law with the 85% that he has to serve,
Right.
he's guaranteed now to serve another 17 years right now. So he was actually moved to an Orlando jail. But because he has to face our jurisdiction now as well, He got moved here about 2 months ago, and they're waiting for him to go before the judge here and then be sentenced, and then he'll go back and finish out his sentence. The state's attorney here is hoping to get him resentenced to life for my case. So we'll see. He was actually supposed to have a court date on April 13th, but because of the COVID,
right,
we're waiting.
Okay, well, keep us updated on that.
I will. It's going to be interesting because I may or may not have to give a victim statement depending on what they try to do. There's some
wow
trying to do, and so I had spoken to the state's attorney and told her that I would speak if I needed to. So we'll see.
Do you want to do that?
Yes. Yeah, I didn't in the first time. I didn't need to because he had pled. So I didn't need to give a victim's statement. I didn't need to, have any involvement, which was fine with me, especially at the time. This person doesn't know me. He doesn't know my name. He doesn't know what I look like. And that's been something that I've kind of taken peace with for a long time. But now I'm not going to hide. I'm not going to. If it's going to make a difference in keeping him away, then hell yeah, he can see my face. He's going to see me tell him to go fuck himself.
I can't speak for everybody else, but I have a pretty good feeling there's other women in the group, including myself, who we would go with you and support you. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you just say the word, but
I will. Absolutely.
It's an amazing story, and I just want to ask you before we ask if anybody else has any questions. What, not necessarily what your expectations were, but what has been something that has really helped you about having a group support, either from us or when you were at the other group, when you were in New Jersey, or something, somebody who might be listening, or if I play this interview at another time, somebody who's contemplating going into therapy or going into a group, what would you say is something that has really been a surprise or a gift or something that is just a value for you in your healing process?
Yeah, it definitely, I wouldn't call it a surprise. Definitely would call it, I don't want to call it a gift either, because nobody wants to have this gift, but it's the gift of me too. It's the gift of, I am not alone in whether sometimes it's the most ridiculous things, triggers. You learn through, therapy what triggers are, and they can be the most minute, ridiculous things. And you can be 20 days or 20 years down the road and find a new trigger for something that, all of a sudden you're right back there and you're in it again, and you're terrified and you're wanting to be in the fetal position, on the bathroom floor. So being able to talk about those things and hear other people say, oh my God, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. I did that. And when I did that, I do this, being able to share how someone else is thriving and what they've done to get to a survival point. And I think it empowers me, and it empowers the person I'm talking to realize that they're not the only ones, and they're giving something to me, they're giving me a tip that, is going to help me, and they can feel good. So it's a weird to share, but it's an incredible thing. And that's what, groups, and even like our Facebook group. So if you can't get physically somewhere, especially right now, with everything that's going on, just being able to just spout something, just say, this happened, and then you get 5, 6, 7 other people going, oh my God, yes, that sucks, I totally know. Or even just somebody going, dude, that sucks, I'm sorry. That's huge. I can talk to my husband, he's amazing. I can talk to my friends, they're great. But if you've never been through what we've all been through, it's not quite the same. There's a difference between sympathy and empathy, and holy shit, yeah, I I get that too. So definitely having that. So if anybody was thinking about, and was hesitant to go to therapy, I know the first time that I started to try to go to a group, I sat in my car and I cried and I drove home. Never made it in the building. And then the next week came and I was like, all right, I'm going to do it this time, and so maybe I made it into the lobby. It took me quite a few times to actually walk into that group and sit my butt down in a chair
Right.
and then look at all these people. But the strength you get from the group,
Right.
it's just the energy is just incredible. And the support, it's an incredible thing, and it's so important.
I couldn't have said it any better. And I remember when I went to my first group in North Carolina, and it's similar, but it was different. It was formatted different. And the very first time, I was scared out of my mind, and I just thought, there's no way that anybody is ever going to be able to understand what I've been through. There's way too many details. They're all going to think that I am making everything up. There's, I just, this is ridiculous. And I left, and I went home, and my husband said, how'd it go? And I'm like, they're all fucking crazy. Like, they're like the most out of their mind women. And I remember him looking at me, and he's like, kettle?
Yeah.
However that saying, black meat kettle, kettle meat black. And I'm like, what do you mean? He was like,
kettle.
Mindy, you belong in that group. Go back with an open mind.
Right.
And so, the first time I just had literally sat there just like so with all my defenses and all my walls up, that all I did was judge everybody. So the next time I went, I decided, okay, I'm going to try to not have all that fear, not have all that judgment. And I just listened, and I remember feeling like, oh yeah, I belong here. Everything they're saying, I feel exactly the same, and all of our stuff is different, but it's the same. And over time, I got so much out of it. So, I cannot thank you enough for, just being so incredibly open and honest and transparent, and being willing to just be you and share and run the group in Vero and this whole bag of goodies. I love it. And, I wanted to make myself accountable by showing it. So now people know that I can't keep it for myself. So that's why I
now you have to do the bag.
Now I have to, but I might, these little ones with the hearts on it, I might keep those for myself. I don't know. Maybe. If you see them, you'll know where I got them. But and then
you're welcome to. I hope you do.
I think I might, but and I mean it. If you hear anything about your court date, I'm sure. I know I am willing to go. I'm sure there's others, but so we have another few minutes. What I'm gonna do